For Reflection 4, I chose to explore the apps and plugins that are available within my LMS platform, which in this case is Schoology. So first I decided to look at which ones are interesting to me. So first I went to the App Center, and right away, obviously, yes, I know it's the first thing that pops up here, but um, Google Drive resources. So it would be a place that I could have all my resources instead of having a pile of them in the resource tab on Schoology. It'd all be contained just within that one app, and then I could pull directly from there to put content into, attach to a folder or um, to a page. But it directly dovetails into like what I can do with other apps that I like, such as the Google Drive Assignments app, which is right up here. Okay, so what I'd be able to do with that is use Google Drive Assignments. I could use it to pull content directly off my Google Drive and make it shareable that way versus just attaching it to um, a page. So and I think that would benefit my students too, because then they wouldn't have to be always just open it from there, like from being attached to the page. They, if they didn't want to go to the page, they could just go find it in the Google Drive. Uh, so, for example, I can go into my page, and let's say, for example, I was creating an assignment. So, Google Drive assignments. I click on that. So, obviously, I have to connect it to my Google account. Allow. And then if I had uh, a document on here like a worksheet or a PDF that I wanted to share, I could just pull it directly from my Google Drive. That way, and then so I think that would be beneficial for my students because they could then download their own copy of it and then share it directly with me through the Google Drive app, but do that all within Schoology. They wouldn't have to open a separate tab and go into their uh, Google account and then open up their Google Drive and then upload the document. They could do that, all of that directly within the within the platform. So that grabbed my attention because that it makes what I'm trying to do easier, which is create a learning experience and making that content available to my students. And then it makes it easier for the students to utilize that content because then they don't have to switch between platforms such as Schoology or platforms like the Google Drive application or web page on their browser. Because I think so that's kind of also ties directly how I would integrate that into my teaching, because if I were able to do everything that I needed to do to teach my course solely through Schoology, then it would create greater ability ability to access that content within Schoology itself. Like they might be able to access, a PDF and read it in there while having the book in front of them. They're not switching between the platforms to read the content. Or if they have, say an ebook version of the textbook that we're using, then they could have it would make it easier to have, the content from Schoology and their ebook side by side with each other while they're, you know, learning material in class or uh, learning it at home. Hopefully, they're doing it both. So that's why those two apps grab my attention. That's how I'm going to integrate those two apps. So those looked interesting. Also, another one that I liked was, let's see, where is that? Quizlet. So I was realizing as I was making my pages that I'm asking my students to absorb a significant uh, amount of content, and there has to be a way for me to enable them to review it. So there's Quizlet. Uh, it's basically online flashcards, but I can put that with, enable them to use that within the Schoology platform. They don't have to go to a separate application or a separate website to do so. And it's got a lot of kind of in common, some things in common with how like they structure Google Drive assignments, because they're both LTI apps, which is, learning tools interoperability, which essentially means it allows web-based resources to be viewed within a learning platform, such as Schoology. So that's a reason that those apps also attracted my attention. Well, attracted my attention. I just used the same word the same thing in a sentence. That was terrible. Anyhow, so how I would envision integrating an app like Quizlet specifically into my teaching is that I could, take publicly available flashcards and questions and just embed them into a page or an assignment versus, sending my students a link and saying, go to this separate page and find these flashcards, through the Quizlet app or the web page, and then who knows if the students can actually find the exact flashcards I want them to be using. So I guess the biggest advantage I see with the apps that Schoology had, the three apps I've talked about, Google Drive Resource app, Google Drive Assignments, and Quizlet, is they can all be used within Schoology, which makes it more convenient for my students because they're not required to go switch between web pages or apps all the time to use the content. Easier for me because then I can control and manipulate all of my content within Schoology itself, and then because like with the Google apps, they can create their own version of something, then they can, it's a worksheet or an activity sheet, make their changes, share it with me, share it with their fellow students, of course with, in the parameters of whatever the assignment is that I give them. They don't have to just rely on whatever is attached to a page and then upload it to the a platform like Google Drive, it's already in there. So it saves a step essentially for my students in using uh, content that I've given them. As far as plugins go, it from what I could see, like looking at Schoology for the last few weeks, uh, there doesn't really seem to be much as far as like like quote unquote, like what we usually think of as plugins, like plugging in outside application, but like you would on like WordPress. But essentially, the apps function as plugins almost. You're plugging in a web-based application into the platform. I don't know if there is actually a way to use plugins, and I'm missing it, but I didn't see a way. Or there wasn't a readily apparent way within Schoology that would allow me to use uh, plugins for my course. Let's see. All right, yep, that about sums up what I've been able to um, find in my exploration about of apps and plugins. There's obviously a lot more apps, but those were the three that really grabbed my attention. There were more, but it didn't seem make sense to go over all the apps because sure I could go through and find uses for all the apps in there, even though well not all because probably some of them duplicate each other. But I just wanted to like summarize what I found with those three apps that I've mentioned already.